Hello everyone, welcome back to another art time lapse. Today I am doing a small piece inspired by Studio Ghibli's many different movies that they have. So I'll call this a lineup for the vending machine. To be honest, I'm not very creative with names. I would love to hear from you guys in comments below if you have any suggestions for this particular art piece. Well, anyways, this is a smaller piece. I believe it is 7" by 7". You can see my son's hand poking in there because he actually is very interested in the arts and he has lots of opinions on what colors I should use and where I should put it. So he's just sitting on my lap while I'm painting. Definitely takes a little bit more time with a 3-year-old on my lap, but I love how he's interested in my artwork, and hopefully he will be able to come to some of my art shows coming up as well. So this piece here is kind of like a cityscape, maybe like a village scene. Just imagine some of the Studio Ghibli characters just hanging out on the streets and what they would be doing. I want it to be kind of near nighttime with these glowing orange lanterns, and then also a vending machine that the characters be lining up for to get like maybe their little treats. This piece I started off with gouache, plenty watered down, diluted to give its watercolor effect, and then afterwards, layer by layer, I will add less water proportion to gouache. You can see my son has decided to come join in my drawing again, giving some comments on, I think you should do this here and this here, and I just think it's so adorable. He's like, add in this color here now. Yeah, so maybe you'll see more of him in my coming videos as well, and he'll make some cameos. So here, just showing you how when I slow things down, actually it takes quite a while for me to finish a single art piece nowadays, because I don't really have the luxury to just sit down and do it in one sitting. Usually it comes down to several sittings because I have to wait for the kids to nap, and then I would get maybe like an hour, maybe 2 hours to do it, while both kids hopefully will nap simultaneously around the weekend. So it takes me a bit longer. So I have done a separate video in case you're interested on how I try to maximize my time as a mommy and like try to find whatever spare time I can, and how I kind of prepare for some of these drawings or these opportunities to paint when there are downtimes, which include like being prepared. So usually I have my desk ready to paint. I have an idea of what I want to paint rather than trying to brainstorm for ideas to paint right when I have the free time. This includes using any spare time I have, let's say 5-minute block waiting for the bus, or like 5 minutes like waiting, like 2 minutes waiting for the elevator, just on maybe my Pinterest looking for right poses for characters or ideas that I want to research a little bit more on. So for example, recently I did a piece inspired by Hokuse's Great Wave off Kinagawa, so I had to look for, I'm like, well, what is the history about the wave, and like look into the intricate details related to it, how I want to create my own anime spin to it. So I try to find a little bit of spare time here and there. Here now you can see I am adding less water proportion to gouache to highlight where the character is going to be. I knew I was going to add Totoro onto this piece for sure, so I thought I might as well get started and just add Totoro in the center. Drawing the characters is one of my favorite parts, and I have a hard time leaving it last, but I also don't want to do it first. I want to kind of lay out where the background is, how like the scene will look like before adding the character in either at the end or midway through the piece. Here I'm leaving space for Totoro's eyes instead of painting a solid piece of where Totoro will be sitting. The reason for that is I can always add white gouache on top of this like darker color that I'm using for Totoro. But instead of layering gouache after gouache, I just think that I like the translucency of the color from the background that kind of blends in nicely, rather than a pure white that I would have to add in or mix a color that would match the background. So I tried to use kind of empty or negative space when I paint instead of just painting a solid piece. Here just doing it slowly, because when you're painting negative space, you know that it's really hard to kind of go back and reverse. You can't really control Z or control Z an action that you've made onto a traditional piece. So I try to be careful or mindful about each stroke in terms of what I do. But I must say, with like acrylic wash, because it's so opaque, you can technically like overlap and paint on top of previous layers and you can cover up mistakes. But I think because of the way that I choose to paint, the style that I paint, you can't always do that. You can see that I have watered down my gouache quite a bit to have this watercolor translucent effect. So if I want that translucent effect to stay, I can't necessarily just overlap it with more gouache. It's just kind of lose that kind of whimsical airiness to it. I think that's what makes my style a little bit unique. Here, after the piece is dried a little bit, I'm using the oil pencils to create a little bit more dimensions and highlights to the piece. That is one of the perks of using acrylic wash. You can integrate it with other medias because it dries matte, it's not glossy, so you can use oil pencils to go on top of it, as well as like other types of multimedia, rather than just using pure gouache. So next, I'm actually using a wax-based pencil to kind of do some of the outline work. I find that I get a different effect when I use oil-based color pencils versus wax-based color pencils. In that oil-based, they're a little bit softer, easier to blend, where I really like the hard edges of some of the wax-based color pencils for some outlines. So that's something different to explore if you're interested in using multimedia on top of opaque gouache. Maybe try different types of oil pencils, not just like wax-based, oil-based, and try different colors and see how they blend with each other and how you can get different effects. And I think that's part of the joy of like exploring art on its own. So here I'm using a Sakura Jelly Roll pen. I know that this is an archival ink pen. I used the white archival ink Sakura Jelly Roll to add white highlights to go back on some of these pieces, and I really like how it creates that stark contrast, especially with some of these shadowy characters. I actually find it really therapeutic and a lot of fun using these type of multimedia, especially like archival jelly rolls like this, because it makes it more convertible for me to go to different places to do my artwork. At a coffee shop, after I finish doing all the gouache background, I can just bring my piece, get a jelly roll, and just like sit in a coffee shop, enjoy like a nice cup of coffee or tea or like boba, and just like add on these highlights, and it's just so relaxing. So here is the finished piece of the lineup for the vending machine, with all of these different characters that you find from Spirited Away, as well as Princess Mononoke and My Neighbor Totoro. I love the idea of these like forest spirits lining up and just chatting while they're waiting in line in the vending machine for the Susumu Atari or the suit sprites, and then the poster of like No Face on the side of the vending machine. Just think it's like such a whimsical and just like a fun piece. And all the while, Totoro's just sitting on a bench checking out the lineup. I hope you enjoyed this video, because I certainly enjoy putting this piece together. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me on another art time lapse, and I'll see you next time. Take care and stay creative, everyone. Bye for now.